So tell me why you set up the company in the first place.
Yeah, so part of my education was studying business and looking at multiple bottom lines, not just thinking about money, but also the social impact, the ecological impact, a spiritual impact. And I heard about this opportunity in Morocco with a travel agency to help people with disabilities, not just do general tours. And that immediately resonated with me. A big reason for that was because cultures all around the world, people with disabilities are often marginalized, and people consider it like, oh, poor thing type of an attitude. And we wanted to bring change to that by uplifting through our business. And so for people to see in Morocco that someone in a wheelchair can come and do these amazing and crazy things just inspires them. And at its heart, it's about showing love to people. And so that's really core to what we're about.
Okay. So did you have any lived experience with disability before you decided to come over here and kind of dive into this world of tourism?
Yeah, so I'll let Jeremy share some of his story with that first.
Yeah, when I was in college, I actually worked for a camp with kids with disabilities.
Okay.
And so I had an opportunity to share love with them, but also show them what was not possible is actually possible. You know, taking people through ropes courses and all of those kinds of things. And so that was a part of the kind of the drive for us, is just seeing how joy changes perspective. And it makes something that was impossible possible, and changing mindset. And that was such a huge part of our kind of our drive for this company as well.
Yeah, and for me, I have a cousin with cerebral palsy, and sometimes you can see someone sitting in a wheelchair and wonder, like, oh, are they fragile? Am I going to break them if I touch them, type of a thing? And like, just as a kid, family holidays, watched my uncle just grab my cousin, just like swish her through the water, and she's just shrieking with laughter, just having the best time. And so it was just this completely different experience with disabilities that just went like, no, like, obviously we have to find out from the individual what is possible or realistic for them. Sure. But at the same time, you're going, like, we all just want to live this, like, different adventures and experiences in our lives. And so just from a young age, saw that was possible.
At the end of the day, people are people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the core of it, is that people are people. And we all just want to enjoy life, do the things that give a spark to life.
We talk about this a lot in the disabled community, about creating, equity to create equality. So treating us differently to treat us the same, if that makes sense. So the idea of creating, removing the barriers that exist. So I want to ask you about this, because when you break down what the types of barriers are for disabled people, you can look at the physical barriers. You can also look at the attitudinal barriers. And perhaps I would argue the latter is harder to change.
Absolutely.
Right? So you've come from America, you've come over to Morocco. Could you tell us a little bit about the types of attitudinal barriers that exist here and how you break them down?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is what Erik already talked about, that you get people who are saying, oh, poor thing. And so
the perception that we should be pitied.
Yeah. And I think some of that has a cultural framework that people are, they see someone in need, and that's one of the beautiful things of Morocco, right? Is that anyone is willing to jump in and help. That's the hospitality culture. But as a part of that, sometimes there is a flip side of that it can turn to pity. And that's not what we're longing for. We're longing to give that independence for people.
And so with that, we drive home with our drivers, with our guides, go ask questions. Just because you see someone sitting in a wheelchair, or if like their mannerisms are different, does not mean that they don't have the capacity to make decisions, does not mean that they don't have a strong sense of independence. And so we go, like there's no shame in asking, like, and that's one of the cultural differences that we want to break down, because here respect is shown to people in authority, and people in authority tell you what to do.
Right.
And we go, no, in our situation, you don't have to present as if you've got it all figured out. It's actually better to ask a question, and then when you hear their response, then respond to what they have clarified for you. So that is one of those attitudes that we've seen change with people. And the other thing, it is growing in Morocco, this idea of human rights, and going like, we have to treat people with dignity. And so the other piece that connects with that is, if there's a family traveling together, or just even a couple traveling together, whether it's a family member or an assistant, go, when you are talking, look at the person that you're speaking to. Don't look past them to an assistant or something like that. We go, because engaging with them, and even if appropriate, drop down to their level to communicate with them, so that you can be looking at each other eye to eye. And so that's another key piece that we work on.
I mean, I hear you explaining that, and it's something that we encounter as disabled people, I think, everywhere almost. It's the attitude or the implicit sense that there's somebody who is living with a disability is someone that you should feel sorry for, is just a global problem, I think. And the other, of course, is that, as you say, the assumptions that you need to perhaps talk to the person with not without the disability. There's a lot of that. So it's interesting to hear that those problems exist here, and how you overcome them with education. And in terms of some of the harder challenges that you've come to overcome, because I suppose as a traveller, I made my assumptions around what I could or could not do in Morocco, and I certainly did not think I'd be sitting in the desert.
No, exactly.
Okay,
right.
But you've made this happen.
Yeah.
So how did you make this happen? What did you do to be able to facilitate this change so that people like me can be here?
Yeah. You want to tell them a bit about?
I mean, it started with just, when we thought about this company, we thought, how can we make something that is just quintessential Morocco happen? Right. Everybody who comes to Morocco, their thought is, I want to be on a camel in a desert.
Yeah.
So that's really where it started from, right?
And
I think that a lot of it was just saying, we have a dream, we have this
Well, I guess
vision.
let me butt it in. It started with going, where are there accessible hotel rooms, and what kind of adapted transport can we have? But that was very quickly, we realized we can't just, that's starting from the low-hanging fruit. We also then wanted to approach it from this side of going, what is one of the, what's the biggest challenge we can imagine overcoming?
Exactly.
Let's go and let's tackle that.
Right.
And so after a couple of years of just doing some general tours, we were like, we have to get to the desert, and we have to innovate. And that's where this adapted camel saddle was born from.
Okay, tell me about the camel saddle. I need to understand how you did that. How did that happen? I cannot wait to try it.
Well, I mean, what was so awesome about that is that we had this collaboration that was well more than just he and I. It was the camel handlers here in the desert. It was the welder up in Arfoud. It was the two of us. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. He has some mechanical background in aircraft mechanic, and so all of these things coming together just made it really possible for us to look at different angles of it.
So there were crazy things like going, okay, I just can't not use my core. So how can we envision getting up on a camel, getting off of a camel? And so we loaded my backpack as heavy as we could get it. So I was just really sitting there. And then he was standing there and going you may not hold the handles on the camel saddle. You just
cheating.
have to sit here. That's cheating.
I was you can't cheat.
You're not allowed to cheat.
So let me say, so you decided that the biggest challenge was we need to be able to enable disabled people to get on a camel and get out there into the desert. So you decided to go and innovate and create a saddle. Okay, and then what? How did you, and how was everyone when you decided you wanted to do that? Was the reaction receptive? Or were people kind of who are these people? What are they trying to do here? What was it like?
So the fascinating thing with humans around the world is that you have all these different personalities. So you have the personalities that go, no, this is impossible.
Yeah.
And then you have the people that are like,
yes, it is.
Dude, this could work. You know, and the others that are like, we can make money off of this. Come on, we've got to make this work.
That's right.
And so, so we had these two guys, one who is the owner of this camp, and then his friend who is just an incredibly experienced camel handler.
Wow.
And the camel handler was going, I'm not sure. We would need to think about this. And all of his doubts gave us information for where we need to create solutions. And
because it wasn't just also about making the camel saddle possible, it was also about protecting the camel as well. And those are things that at first we didn't really think about that angle. But how do we make sure that we are providing that respect between all of the parties involved, because there are pressure points that can cause breakdown, and so looking at all of those things as a whole became a huge part of this project.
And I mean, like, we haven't done a ton of innovating before, so like we began by approaching it from a fairly complex approach of how can we have a removable camel saddle where we can actually securely put all this seat belts on and get our client like situated comfortably, and then transfer onto the camel and then have attachment points. That was a failure. We managed to spook a camel.
You did it.
So we were like,
that didn't work.
We're going back to our food to the welder. So
that's right.
And it was just kept paring it down and down and down until we came to the simplest solution. We thought about, like, do we have an adjusting seat where it can be leaned farther back as the camel's getting up? And then we went, no, that actually won't actually help.
Well, I mean, one of our iterations was just too top heavy, and so it was sliding off of the camel. And so, I mean, thankfully,
we're testing with ourselves, not with our guests.
That was us on there. You know, and so just realizing that there was the process of just breaking down to what is the absolute necessity to allow this to happen.
And so what it wound up being in the end was we used components from a wheelchair, we used components from the camel saddle, then we welded some different elements together.
I cannot wait to see this.
Incorporated seat belts from cars,
so
right.
We have a little
wheelchair, a little camel saddle, a little car.
So I cannot wait to. I feel like I'm going to be a bit of a guinea pig as well. This is going to be fun. If somebody who didn't know you was interested in coming out here and experiencing what you have to offer, what kind of conditions, what kind of disabilities do you cater for? Who can you get out here, and what kind of experiences do you enable us to have?
Yeah, I mean, I think so far we have had people with a low-level spinal cord injury, all the way up to someone who is quadriplegic, that have all ridden camels. So, so all of that whole spectrum, we have been able to provide an experience to, which has been fantastic. I mean, that's the most rewarding part of what we do.
And so for us, it starts with a questionnaire that Jeremy developed, which is essentially we do a mobility inventory where we find out what this person's disabilities are, and also not only biologically what they are and physiologically what they're able to do, but also attitudinally where their level of adventure is. Because again, whether you're using a wheelchair or just walking, you have those different levels of desire. Like, some people are like, I will never get on a camel.
Getting on a camel.
And there's other people who are like, heck yes, I will. So those are components. I would say that definitely the Sahara, we qualify that with all of our guests of going, like, this is marginal accessibility, and we kind of try to talk through some of the distances that you'll be covering, where there will be accessible bathrooms. Again, talking about just coming with a different perspective, because again, for anybody stepping into something, if you set expectations, that just helps the whole experience as well. And so it's a lot about that communication. We've made a couple of videos as well, so that people can watch and see, okay, all right, this is what I'm getting into, and am I ready for that?
Yeah, because it goes back to those attitudinal things that that people, if they have an expectation, then if you come under that expectation, it's really difficult. But if they know what they're getting into, a lot of it is just that mental preparation to be able to ready themselves for what they're going to encounter.
Yeah. I have to say, I didn't know what to expect, because I kind of personally wanted to come out here just with no expectations.
Yeah.
I've learned as a wheelchair user to often do that, just so that you don't get let down.
Wow, yeah.
Obviously you guys have completely surpassed that, which is phenomenal, and I'm super grateful, and to honestly, I never thought as a wheelchair user I'd be sitting in the desert like this. This is pretty special. What would you say to anybody who's watching this who has a disability, who hasn't considered Morocco? Why should they come here?
Oh, there are so many reasons to come here. I would say that as far as African destinations are concerned, following South Africa, Morocco is the most accessible destination in Africa, and it's had immense influence from Europe. And so you see some of those, especially in the major urban areas. Hotels are accessible. There are even certain public bathrooms that are accessible. So from that sense, there's already some framework there. But however, like if you come willing to explore this, people are so hospitable here. And they are so willing to help with anything. And so I think it's kind of the piece of going weigh out what you would like. Absolutely, like we are advocating for accessibility to improve and inclusion to be standard in how people think. However, in the meantime, like consider coming out and just encountering the hospitality of Moroccan people.
Well, and every time that we bring a wheelchair user here, it adds to the accessibility. You know, just the other day, we had somebody that came, and they needed grab bars, and so we called the hotel and said, would you be willing to install these? We told them the exact height that they needed to.
Because all of our hotel rooms were booked that we had in that city that were accessible. So
and then they said, yeah, we'll do it, and they installed it. They took pictures, they put it tape measure. We knew what we were getting. It's a hotel that we've worked with before that has the ability to get in, but we were limited by grab bars, and now another level of accessibility has been added. And so I think that's a part of when people come, they also see, this is a personal thing. This is a human thing.
It's interesting because it's very different to the approach, say for example in the UK, where you expect it, and if it's not there, it's not going to happen. Whereas here it feels like you can innovate on the ground. You can have help if you need it, whether that's manhandling literally, or an installation of a shower seat, or a grab rail, or people will be quick to adapt for you, which is really comforting, quite enabling, to think about. And obviously with you two steering that conversation and helping support that and facilitate it, even more, empowering.
And I would just say that there's a range of different options. Like you can book your own hotel room in Marrakesh and just contact us for airport transfers. That's like the simplest, basic option, to a fully planned private tour where your drivers have been trained, your guides have been trained. There are pushers that can help through Medina's, particularly Fez is quite hilly, so like having an assistant to help push with that. But we have rental equipment available for people if they're worried about bringing a power wheelchair, traveling and those kind of things. So ask questions and let us know what your needs are. Amazing. And we'll work with it.
Awesome. Amazing. Wow. Well, thank you. It's such a privilege to meet you both. Thank you for everything you're doing. It's brilliant.
It's our pleasure.
And now I just got to go and check on that camel now. I'm kind of like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. Sick.
Yeah.
Well, let's have some tea.
Yes. Okay. Let's do it.